My name is Gerald Newman, and I'm the director of the Human Rights Program here at Harvard Law School. And it's my enormous privilege to be able to quickly host and then sit and listen to our distinguished guest, Madame Bineta Diop, who will be talking about securing women's rights in Africa. Before she starts, she will be introduced by the moderator for the event, which is our own Professor Ruth Okediji, who is the Jeremiah Smith Jr. Professor of Law and a co-director of the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society. She is a renowned scholar in intellectual property law, both domestic and international, including the relationship between international property law, intellectual property law, and development and human rights. And she has extensive experience in treaty drafting in that area as well, which I think makes her an especially appropriate moderator for today's event. She's a longtime friend of the Human Rights Program, and we are delighted to have her helping us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jerry. I'm going to give an elaborate introduction of Ms. Diop, which she will, I am sure, try to strangle me about, but I insist on doing it. Madame Bineta Diop is a Senegalese women's rights activist. For those of you who don't know, she really is a pioneer in the field of women's rights, and in particular women's rights in Africa. And we agree on so much, but there's one thing that she and I don't agree on, and that's jollof rice. And we'll talk about that a little later. Madame Diop has over 40 years of experience in human rights work, in peace and development issues. She spent over 2 decades at the International Commission of Jurists in Geneva. Again, just doing pioneering work there about both the normative and the practical and the institutional dimensions of women's rights in Africa. And she was, in that capacity, the African Union Special Envoy on Women, Peace, and Security. Madame Diop is the legendary founder and president of Femmes, Afrique, Solidarité, FAS, which is an international NGO that she really both conceived and gave birth to in 1996. And really one of the leading NGOs that seeks to foster and to strengthen and to promote leadership roles for women. I think one of the things that Madame Diop has done so quietly and elegantly and powerfully is link leadership to human rights. And that we can talk about the norms all day long, but unless we have women in leadership, unless we create institutions that facilitate women in leadership, we are unlikely to see a really significant end to violence against women. She's led numerous peace-building efforts around the globe and in Africa, both to enhance women's participation in democratic processes, but also in peace processes in Liberia, in the DRC, some of the most conflicted places on the continent. She regularly updates the UN Security Council, the AU Peace and Security Council. Her voice is sought after, which is a remarkable testament to not only her strength of conviction, but also her wisdom. And so it is just an honor and an incredible delight to have her here at Harvard, and in particular to have her here this afternoon to talk about this incredible convention that she has given so much of her life to seeing come to pass. So, Madame Diop, thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me first really thank the Harvard Law School for inviting me and to have this conversation first. But second, you know, when Professor Abadir asked me, and she said that, you know, Professor Ruth Okedeji will be the one to moderate, and I was so glad. So thank you so much for giving me this space. And of course, human rights is at the heart of our discussion today. And I will just start it globally because it will be good that we recall the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, which really, when it was adopted, it marked really the international, you know, and the modern international human rights law, and also by reaffirming what you see is that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. But also on Article 2, you will see that the fact that it is universal, the universality of the law, but also the indivisibility of the law when it comes to, as we say here, the race, color, sex, language, etc. So from there, which have been adopted in 48, and you could see that we have also CEDAW, the other convention on the elimination of all form of discrimination against women in 79. You know, the issue of women's rights are always added on the second thought. And the charter adopted in 81, I will come back to this, and the Maputo Protocol to 2003. You know, I will start by the International Commission of Jurists, Neil McDermott, who was the Secretary General of the ICJ, who, you know, a man of, you know, leading human rights institution in the world, well-renowned for his passion. And what he did was to accompany people like Justice Kebamba, you heard about him, who was a Senegalese judge, but also at that time was the chair of the ICJ. But also based on Senegal and of course my country, we will talk about the jollof rice afterward, but Senghor and Abdou Diouf, you know, were part of this, you know, architect of the human rights instruments. So many, Francois Xavier Mbouyoum, you name them, many judges that in Africa that really wanted and start questioning the charter itself and to see how we can have an instrument that will make sure that we are part and parcel the Universal Declaration by domesticating in Africa. So what the ICJ did by accompanying the committee that was drafting, and when it was adopted by the OAU then, so ICJ went to Nairobi because sometimes they draft and put it on the shelves and they don't, you know, ratify it and they don't implement. So in Nairobi 85, to accelerate the ratification, what ICJ did is convene a meeting to accelerate with Daniel Arap Moi because Moi was going to host the summit. It was very strategic to make sure that we have, prior to the summit, we had a discussion of, and this is the summit which really gets the ratification, enough ratification for the charter. So the charter, you know, my role, very briefly, the very small role, was to support the committee of experts that drafted with Kebamba the charter at the ICJ, you know, under the leadership of McDermott, and it was led by Kebamba. And what we see here on the charter, the different, you know, it's bring a new original jurisprudence that recognize not only human, which was in the charter, but people's rights. And I think it's really also include the right to self-determination, development, control over natural resources. And you might recall that it was also post-independence, right? And the issue of colonization and so on. But the charter then, look at also African communal values, mutual responsibility, and the indivisibility of rights and duties. And it introduced the issue of duties. You have them, Article 1 and Article 27. So, but there was limited scope again, because I recall that when I was servicing that committee, you will see it was only judges and it was male dominated. There was no women, even though there was a lot of women's rights activists, but also lawyers, judges who were in Africa. But we found that the charter gender reference were limited. There was no specific right to equality, bodily autonomy were not there. Of course, I could not see Kebambe, talking about those issues. But what happened is when they put in place the commission, when the charter was adopted, the commission was established in Banjul, as you see. And the special rapporteur, because they put in place a special rapporteur at the time of, who was Madame Julienne Onziel, from Congo. And the first thing she did was to say, we need to look at, to draft a protocol, additional, at the time we call it, additional protocol with a group like WILDAF, with group like ICJ, of course, were leading, and the Africa Center for Democracy, Human Rights Study. Many other women's groups that were in Africa were part of the process of drafting this. So after the drafting, again, on the shelves, that's always happened. Lawyers, judges will draft, but to make it ratified and enter into force, it's always a big problem. But we have to find strategy. What we did as Femmes Africa Solidarité, with the special rapporteur, Madame Onziel, and all the women's lawyers, we convened a meeting in Senegal, but under the theme of the World Conference on Racism and Racial Discrimination. Just an anecdote, we were visiting the President Wade in Senegal and to present our agenda on the racism conference, because it was led by Mary Robinson, you recall, but also Madame Kozazana Dlamini Zuma. And we were going to Durban for that conference. And President Wade said that, what do you want as compensation? Because there was a huge debate during that conference on compensation. And we had fights, so many issues. We say the only thing we want as African is to make sure that we have the protocol on women's rights, because it will be our protection. We are not asking for money, because the slavery, the colonization cannot be paid by money. But what we want is the protocol. So, of course, the next meeting, the decision was taken to ask for an expert group meeting. Because once now the experts sit, the government expert, it means that the ball is rolling. So let me just now just talk about the protocol. So 53 member states have signed, except now Egypt and Morocco. 46 have ratified, except you see. 21 have reported, because we have the guidelines. The second rapporteur, which was Soyata Maiga, made guidelines for reporting. So 21 have reported and 24 have not reported. So you see that it's slow in terms of reporting the implementation. So let's go to the, just in 2 minutes, what is the protocol about?
The protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the Rights of Women in Africa, better known as the Maputo Protocol, is one of the world's most comprehensive and progressive women's human rights instruments. It was adopted by the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union in Maputo, Mozambique on the 11th of July, 2003, and entered into force on 25th November 2005, with the African Union Women, Gender and Youth Directorate mandated to report on its status and progress to the Assembly. The protocol officially serves to recognize the crucial role of women in the preservation of African values based on the principles of equality, peace, freedom, dignity, justice, solidarity, and democracy. Furthermore, the protocol seeks to guarantee extensive rights to all African women and girl citizens and includes provisions and specific implementation on harmful traditional practices such as child marriage and female genital mutilation, reproductive health and rights, roles in political processes, economic empowerment, and ending violence against women. It also recognizes improved autonomy in their reproductive health decisions, benefiting all citizens by ensuring equal rights for women and girls. On the African continent, women make up more than 50% of the population in Africa, and as such, women and girls deserve to live in a world that is free from all forms of violence and discrimination. When all African nations fully abide by the obligations under the Maputo Protocol, this will be one step closer to becoming a reality and in line with the African Union's Agenda 2063 vision of fully empowered women with equal access and opportunity in all spheres of their lives. The potential of the African continent is intrinsically linked with the growth and development of its women citizens. And as such, since 2005, 49 African Union member states have signed, and 42 have ratified the protocol as of May 2021, recognizing that achieving gender equality via the Maputo Protocol is key to African progress and development, and ultimately delivering the Africa we want.
Thank you. So you have seen the African Union and the Gender Directorate, UNDP, for giving us this small advocacy. Since then, you could see that it has increased. Let me go to the next one. Yes.
The protocol to the African...
Yeah. Yes. So just to not repeating what have been said in the video, that it gave full normative expression to women's rights. In Article 8, you will see, I'm sure that many of you have read the protocol, the issue of body, the autonomy of our body, also the reproductive health. And just an anecdote, I was one day at the United Nations in the corridor, and somebody was just giving in the corridor with the paper, and to say, you know, the Africans are killing their babies. Africans are killing because of the article of the abortions. So I look at him and I said, I was part of those who drafted this. And the abortion is about those women that have been raped in conflict and those that cannot see themselves of giving birth. So he just ran away. So campaigns sometimes are going against us to say, what are you doing in Africa? But we know why we are also adopting, and we make a difference because myself being in conflict zone, I know what it means for women that have been raped and women that are also, so all other issues that I'm not going to talk about here, but harmful traditional, which doesn't exist else in many other regions. Female genital mutilation, it still exists. So these are some of the issues that we address in the Maputo Protocol. So now, when you say the Maputo Protocol, many said, well, you have the Maputo, why are you looking into issues of CVG, the violence, the convention to end violence against women and girls? And I think it's a way of reinforcing also in terms of our protection, participation, as you said, Professor Ruth, you have said it, leadership issues are critical. So there are issues that was not addressed in the Maputo Protocol that we wanted to address. So the African women leaders led by our patron Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, during COVID. And it was not just Africa, the lockdown. There was so many violence at home. And those who even went to workplace, if it was not, after that, it was critical everywhere that we saw that scourge that was happening. So we say, what do we do? How can we continue to advocate among only ourselves? We need the men in the room, and we need leadership. And that's where we went now to see the chair of the AU, who was President Ramaphosa, to say we wanted to discuss key issues, which is violence against women. We don't want only to discuss our economic transformation. Great, it's needed. We don't want to also to look at our governance political, but we want to discuss these key issues, which is fundamental in terms of our human security in Africa. So they took it seriously, Ramaphosa, and because he was fighting with the food and vaccines, he gave it to Kinshasa, was the second one, chairing the AU, and after Macky Sall in Dakar, Comoros, South Africa. At the end of the day is what we call the positive masculinity agenda in Africa, which now many countries have adopted to bring men on board. And we had a lot of consultation about positive masculinity with the help of the United Nations, UN Women, UNDP, UNFPA. Most of them rally behind us to say we need to have the conversation. So now at the end of the day, they recommended the adoption of what we call the convention. They recommended themselves. So we say, hallelujah, let's make sure that right now we can draft the convention, and that's what we did. But this is one of the meetings on positive masculinity. There were a lot online. Ellen on the middle, you have a president, I think that this picture should be replicated. President Kagame and President Tshisekedi, both of them at the meeting in Kinshasa, Macky Sall, but also Congo, but there was other online as well. So they commit to adopt and implement an African Union Convention on Ending Violence Against Women and Girls that will serve as a legal framework to end violence against women. And also they commit to evaluate annually the implementation, especially right now we are on the 16 days of activism that is going to start very soon. So that's the Dakar meeting, which reiterate also that the drafting with Moussa Faki, who was the chair of the AU, but all the women leaders were there. Ellen Johnson, Samba Panza, former president of CAR, and also Gurab Fakim, former president of Central Africa, Sally Work-Zwede, former president of Ethiopia. And here with the President Ramaphosa, we continue. Every year we push during the 3 or 4 years to draft, but also to bring it back to them to say we are in progress. And the drafting was not us. We convened in Africa lawyers and judges, across Africa, north, south, for them who have been part of drafting constitution, legal framework, just a name, somebody like Maza Shenafi, the former Chief Justice of Ethiopia, and many others like them in Senegal, Dior Faso, really eminent women to draft the convention. But not just drafting, but making sure that they get consultation. Consultation with the youth, consultation with private sector, because violence happens in the workplace, but consultation also with traditional leaders and religious leaders. We didn't let them out of the discussion. So it was really cross-boundary that we went across to say we need the leadership, the legitimacy, and we need the involvement on the drafting of the convention. So at the end, the working group that Musa Faki asked me to chair, on positive masculinity, but now the panel that was drafting, so the head of states took a decision to say, negotiate it now. We have to negotiate it. So, of course, what we did was to make sure that we bring it back to them in 2024, and they said, conclude the negotiation. It means not bringing back to the different stakeholders. So we, as I said, citizen engagement, regional economic community, really the broad-based input integrated in the drafting process. This is one of the youth, the young people were really involved, and boys and girls. So the validation, now we went to the ministers of gender, which we call the STC, is a committee, the technical committee. They adopted the draft, and they were excited to have an oversight mechanism, because we really propose a committee, on the Convention on the Right of the Child, there is a committee that is overseeing and reporting directly. So we look at different mechanism, and we say it will be great to have that mechanism. So the Minister of Gender was excited, and they really adopted. The Ministers of Justice, that was where we had some challenge, because now they said we cannot adopt it in this way, because it's, of course, bringing many issues. But at the end, they said, oh, the African Union have seized the budget. If we have a committee, the committee will not have the necessary funds to put it, but maybe we can consider it later. But let's take it to the ministers of foreign affairs, the political body. So the justice, of course, we were very happy to pass that stage, that at least they didn't block it. There was a stage they were blocking it to say, bring it next year. So it went now to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who adopted by using also to say that let's take it to the Banjul Commission next to the Maputo Protocol. So the Banjul, the African Commission, will be the one to monitor its implementation. So the head of state in February this year, 2025, adopted the CVAUG. So we clap for them. And that was my last, my 10 years as a special envoy of the African Union. I was leaving, and the chair of the AUC, Musa Faki Mohammed, but also the chair, the president of Angola, both of them called me on the podium because of the work that representing the voice of the women. I think it was not about me, as I told them, it's about the women of Africa, recognizing the work we have done as African women on this convention as well. So let me just say the signatory right now, we have Angola, Burundi, DRC, Liberia, Gambia, Ghana. It's just a beginning for the signing. We need 13 signatories, so at least we can have, after the adoption, it can get entering into force, but we need also for the implementation. Challenges are laws, as you know, and constitutional challenges. They will, inside the country, will come with so many issues. I remember in the Maputo Protocol where we were drafting, there were so many who have come to say its contradiction in our Islamic law or in our Catholic law, whatever it is, we will find that they will be the problem to bring it at home. But we are ready. I think the African women are ready to fight to make sure that is going to be implemented. So you will see the cultural foreseen challenges that we see. It will be tough, but we are organized with a special rapporteur to make sure that we will get there. The opportunities, I was just saying, Director, the professor, that we think that there is a decision which is on Malabo Declaration to merge because we need a court of justice. You know, we have the court, the human rights courts, which is in Tanzania. We have also the African Commission, which is there. We know the challenge that both are facing. There are even some countries that are leaving the commission, not the commission, but the court, the human rights. But if you have the court of justice, and it has been decided, maybe in that case, the women rights case will find a ways, the cases, specific cases that are documented. I have been with President Obasanjo in South Sudan to investigate you know, what happened there. And I can tell you, there are so many cases that need to be brought to justice, but it's still pending everywhere. So we need to bring perpetrators to justice and to end impunity. I thank you. It doesn't exist anywhere. We need to clap for Africa. Yeah, we did. Thank you.
All right, am I on? Great, 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 great. Wow, just the journey to this point is quite mind-blowing. Just the persistence and the clear political landscape that you were working with. So we're gonna, I'm gonna ask a few questions, and I know we don't have a lot of time, and this is such an important topic and issue, and it reveals a lot of what is happening around the world on with regard to women's rights, but also the particular circumstances of African women and, frankly, of African men, right? Because the culture is quite a dense social enterprise. And I love the way that you and the team were so focused on bringing the men along. So my first question really is, what stood out to you in that process as you were engaging these presidents and heads of state, many of whom had ruled in times where there was violence against women, you know, through, in particular, when there was conflict, when there was national conflict. So what was your particular approach in even beginning to say, this is an instrument that we need to complete the human rights ecosystem on the continent? How did you do that?
Let me just say that, you know, in our context in Africa, we know that men don't like talking about this kind of issues. You know, they think that it's a female issues and we need to deal with it. Even they are the perpetrators. But I think what facilitates our dialogue is first when you take a country like South Africa, you know, when femicide is happening and there is so much, there is no way that you can come to denial anymore. It happens there. You take countries like DRC, East Congo. At one stage they were calling East Congo, you know, the capital of rapes, you know. So you could see that they should be concerned. And the victims that also we brought forward to speak. Because most of the time we are with the Security Council or Peace and Security Council is to bring from, we go Solidarity mission in the field, but we don't want them to continue to be in denial. So for them, the acceptation that is happening and it's going to impact also to make the economic case of it, because it's the body of the African women, and it's the majority of the people who psychologically, and you deprive from their rights. So for us, we made the case. But I think those who were making the case were already ready and they understood it. Maybe what we needed is to give them the space for them to discuss it. Give them the space. So if you bring South Africa, DRC, and other countries, Senegal and so on, who are part of the human rights system, so you get, and Kagame, when you see the genocide in Rwanda, and you bring a small group of like-minded, which can expand. Because the issue is that you cannot bring every 55 countries for them to accept, but you can start by a like-minded group who are concerned by the issue, and you can put them together for them to discuss. And I think that's where our strategy, of course, with somebody like Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, those who have been president, and they can talk to president. I might not be able to do it, but they will be able to talk to president. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love this idea, which I've seen so much in the UN, that you can't really bring everyone to the table. And so the strategic identification of leaders who already have some kind of both political will, but also normative commitment, to the issue as a starting point. And that is such a powerful picture that you showed there, with really these heads of state saying politically, we are going to be committed to this. I want to ask about sustainability, which is the huge problem in human rights generally. I think almost all leaders love the idea of human rights. It's not yet out of vogue. So no one is going to say I'm against human rights. But there's deep, and especially in Africa, deep concern about monitoring and reporting, even as the statistics show. So what are your thoughts about how we strengthen the reporting and the transparency mechanisms? People are still uncomfortable, with reporting the degree of violence against women. So how do we overcome that reluctance?
Yeah, it's a very big issue. You are quite right, a big question. The elephant in the room is that why even, they talk about the ceiling of the resources of the AU, not to put a committee that can be the oversight mechanism. But it's work in progress. Because for me, for example, as a special envoy on women, peace and security, what I did, I said when I started my work on issues of violence and so on, I said, no, I'm not going to get another national or regional action plan on women, peace and security. Yeah. What we need is a framework of accountability with the clear indicators, so bringing experts to look into this commitment, and that's what we're trying to do with the convention, to see what are the indicators of success, and we identify them and put them into guidelines. And what we do is also to go, and that's what the rapporteur did with the Maputo Protocol, because before they were not even reporting on the Maputo Protocol. But now you go, and sometimes also it's because there is ignorance and there is a lack of skills. So what you do is to go to the member state, to those who are in charge of reporting, you give them the possibility, you train them, you give them the capacity. Those who are for example, the expert in the Ministry of Gender or the Ministry of Justice, so you take them into those indicators that you have developed, but you help them on terms of the reporting. So they are easier now to see what are what is lacking in the implementation. And most of the time they accept. But the other thing is also not just to give it to one consultant who will, lock the door and start developing reporting. No, what you need to do is to bring civil society and allow them even to do alternative reports. What you can do also is to, most of the time the parliament is not involved. That's why it's important that it gives to the parliament to be part of the agenda of the government. It means that the leadership, but also within the budget. Because when they talk about implementation, it's about resource. But if you embed it into the national budget, it also, and bringing the parliamentarian. What I like sometimes is some country, even in the parliamentarian, they will have a women caucus, the gender caucus. But now, if we are able to have also issues that are the convention caucus, violence against women caucus, I think in the parliament itself, it will help to accelerate the discussion in the parliament, but also in other institutions at the national. Because at the end, it's implementation at the national level, and even at the grassroots level.
Wow, wow. So this is really, really transformative for the continent.
Brilliant.
So I want to push you a little bit and ask you a delicate question. Well, a couple of delicate questions. But the first one is, one of the things that tends to happen when African women have led in something that's pioneering, like this treaty, is that the broader international system doesn't celebrate it.
Mm-hmm.
And resources from the broader international system are not directed to it. And so already we can see that the Convention for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, and this convention are almost being framed as in competition.
Yeah.
And some of the consultants that tend to be sent to deal with issues of violence against women on the continent want to operate under CEDAW, but not under the African Union Charter. So what are your thoughts about how we can foster a sort of a mutual reinforcement between the two, rather than this competitive framing that we are starting to see even amongst NGOs, which is very, very tragic to me.
Yeah. That's the big questions, and I think it's a key that we are part of the universe, right? And we need, I think there are two issues that we need to consider, especially in these circumstances right now. It's a wake-up call for Africa, for us to understand that we need to be the main actors of our own destiny. We need to take it, but in the meantime, we are part of the global world, and we cannot ignore that. And we make sure that also what we are doing is known to others. Because we do it, but we keep quiet. When I look at our big media, we do things, but it doesn't go outside. I have to come here to Harvard to share what I'm doing on the convention. It's not happening in some university in Africa, but it should. We should go everywhere in university in Africa to say, this is the convention. By the way, in the consultation, university academia was consulted as well in the process, but we need to bring it out, and to make sure that nobody can come and claim what we are doing. They claim what they're doing. So we need ourselves to make our own case, and we need to show it to the world that we are doing it right. Of course, it's not just to show the violence that are happening. Violence happened in Europe. Violence happened. It took so many time, how many ages before even the first war, the second war, the atrocities that's happened. So we have 50 years of independence. 50 years only. You will tell me that there are so many other tools we can use to accelerate our development, and we need to do it. It requires a lot of leadership, political will to do that, and I think the young people are now ready to question those issues. But we need, for example, we don't have a big television. You have CNN here, you have Al Jazeera, which help. We don't have it in Africa. We are still divided, and I think when we continue by making sure that Africa is united and our border, but it's happening with the new technology. There is no borders anymore. So we need to use that opportunity to scale up. But it's a challenge, as you say, rightly.
It's a real challenge. I love your point about dissemination, because I think one of the key advantages of the dissemination happening by Africans is it also shatters stereotypes.
Yeah.
Yes. As I tell my students, no one can tell your story like you.
Yeah.
And so telling the story of violence on the continent by Africans in many ways gets away from the kind of stereotypes and racial challenges that some of the other stories tell about violence in Africa. I know that our time is really going pretty fast. I want to make sure that the audience has an opportunity to ask questions. There is a question I want to put on the table. I may harass you about it afterwards. But one of the things I love about this, for those of you who've not read the treaty, I really encourage you to study it and to compare it with some of the other treaty language and other UN instruments. But one of the things that this treaty does is it talks about harm from verbal abuse. And I just want to underscore this because historically, even in the most advanced legal systems, other than forms of slander, or outright defamation, verbal abuse is not actually a legal thing. It's a very narrow piece of even the most advanced legal systems. And so to recognize, especially for young girls, that verbal abuse can begin to shape their own understanding of their own value, and that when we talk about violence, verbal violence is covered. I thought this was the most under-celebrated piece of the treaty. I just thought it was incredible, right? And so I'd love to talk with you a little bit about how that got in, but I want to open up for questions from the audience. And I know we have people on Zoom, so if there are questions, let's begin to take them. Thank you so much. Mike is coming your way.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kejiji and Your Excellency. So two things. Recently in the Gambia, there was a repeal. The legislators want to repeal the ban on FGM, and that was a huge thing on the continent. Not much really came from, there wasn't any strong positioning coming from the AU about this. The issue of aid, Africa is no longer being respected globally just because we are almost at the other end of always asking. With all of this intricacies, and right now you even see when young people are on the streets, they're calling for the West. Come save us. Come and help us. Come and bring us. So the mindset right now is that we are helpless. What do you think?
A couple, because of the time, I want to make sure everybody gets their questions. And so maybe take two, and then Madame Diop will respond, and then we'll take another round.
Madame Bineta, what a beautiful name. It's such a privilege to be here in your presence. Often when people migrate from their home country, also marginalized populations, immigrants, people of color, often find themselves shape-shifted into situations of adverse impact or disparate treatment. In situations like this, we lose our confidence, we lose our identity, sometimes even privilege or a memory of a privilege. legacy, heritage. Why are we so shy of reclaiming our privilege during these times? Because for me, privilege doesn't necessarily mean entitlement. It's just merely an extension of merit. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll let her take these two and then we'll take another round.
yeah. Thank you, my brother, for this in recalling us Gambia, what happened, and quickly. But there was quite diplomacy. That's why it was stopped. There is, our method is not always coming out and making publicity around our actions, but there were pressure. And the message that we got, we were even going to move to Gambia. The message that we got from the highest authority was to say, yeah, we're going to fix it. It will not happen. So we got that assurance that they will not do it. So sometimes it's not visible. That's the African way of solving sometime our problem. If it doesn't work, now you come out. But you don't start by coming out because you will put them sometime on the leadership, the shame. The social media is a really, and it's very linked to this, the issue of the youth. The young people, the mindset. We had the conversation, I'm sure you and me, on the leadership issues. We need, even in the political spheres, we used to have things that are education of the young people on their civic and their comportement, on the way that young people. But the social media right now is educating our young people. It's no longer within the family, it's no longer in schools, it's out there. Whatever you take is what's now influencing the young people. But we need to respond to some of the need. It's the job creation. They go at university for so many years, they get out of it, they don't have job. So our leaders have to see, we have the conversation, the Africa is rich, the soil is rich, the Africans are poor. How do we economically transform the economy of Africa to benefit the African? It's a big thing for the young people. Changing the mindset on this women leadership is also what we do. For example, we go on retreat every time as women leaders, and we lock door, not just on positive masculinity, but we lock door with young people to speak, because they need space to speak. They need space to be listened. They need space to be accompanied. They need space, not just in the family, which is burdened by so many, but I know it's a big issue. Changing the mindset is not just about education. The migration issues, I didn't get it, but it's how the migrant they could contribute to what is happening right now.
What's and how you hold on to your dignity as you're changing all of these, especially, say, for example, after Civil War, just the consequences of the displacement, the consequences
No, it is a big issue also that we have seen in Africa, that going from one place to another and not belonging to anywhere. And that's why, when we talk about even the continent, because it's a historical, we had from the slave to now, is to restore the dignity of the people, restore the dignity, give them their right, make them wherever, and open the door, give them, even if you are from Rwanda and you come to Senegal, give them the possibility to be a citizen in Senegal. So I think it's also restoring their, the dignity, but also their own children to be in the education system. Don't exclude them in everything. That open the space for them. So I think a lot of migrants outside are also suffering the discrimination as migrants. Some are good enough to go back home, Myself, I can consider myself as an international servant, but also as a migrant. But I never cut my tie with my continent because I think it's important that you know your roots. If you don't know where you come from, I don't think that you know where you're going to. I don't know if I responded to this, but it's yeah, thank you.
Let's take one more round and then we'll.
Thank you so much for this important conversation. I have perhaps a slightly easier question for you. With the lawyers you've encountered in your experiences, what were some of the traits and skills that stood out to you that made them effective in your work?
It's
Abadir.
And I have a more difficult question. I'm wondering, with the African Convention on Violence Against Women and Girls, in terms of its ratification, I'm wondering if there are countries and states that are maybe on the edge and need encouraging, to get the number of ratifications you need for it to.
yeah.
And I'm going to add one question to that because I think it's related to the ratification issue. The convention in Article 4 talks about data. And we know that Africa has been the site of data labor, for all of the artificial intelligence training that is happening. And so there's now sensitivity about data collection.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, is there anyone working on how do we ensure data gathering for purposes of implementation without running into all of the problems about data on the continent because of the fear of the use of that data for AI?
Yeah, that's a big question. Yeah, thank you. I think it's for the students that are engaging on these issues, that the skills that you need is, first of all, what you are studying here is really the getting to understand the laws, because you say nul n'est censé ignorer la loi. No, you need to get into that, and I think that's the first thing to do. I'm not a lawyer, but people say that I have been trained by lawyers. So you could see that understanding and making sure that also that the other issue is not, the way that we do it is having the skill to be together. Mandela said that I am because you are, and you are because I am. It's also the fact that the issue that the society is isolating us is how do you connect? As student that you are, how do you continue to connect and to be one? And for a cause, you can recognize what the other, the same objectives, and how do you work together? She can open the door for you, not just in Africa, in Asia. So that connection is very important, opening up our mind. So the skills is what you learn, but also what you get into the society as well. So I think for me is connecting with the other. I like human beings, and I think that I learn a lot from others also, their own experience, and it has also helped me to do what I have been doing. The other issues is, how do we make sure that other countries, you look at the Maputo Protocol, you have seen the resilience, the resistance, right? Of course, when you look at the African Commission, the African Charter itself, you find that some people have not ratified because of self-determination. And we hope that it's evolving, because there are decisions that have been taken now, or I don't know. But some countries might have also the issue of reservation, because now we are embarking with countries to say, you might, for example, when we were doing the protocol, Tunisia, because they don't have, in the Maputo, we put polygamy. the issue of polygamy. But we say monogamy is our preference in the Maputo. But in case there is polygamy, because we know that it exists, each women have to be protected. So you can find a way. But Tunisia did not make reservation on that article because their law is saying there is no polygamy. They don't recognize it. So those reservations that we found on many, we can engage with the member state. And I think with the special rapporteur, we're looking at how do we engage in a practical way on to discuss with them what is problem they founding and which is not in conformity with their own law that can make reservation. Of course, it's better if there is no reservation at all. But the discussion, the advocacy, there are countries that you have seen from the Charter to the Maputo to now that are resilient and which we need to engage because Africa should be united. Africa is one. Maybe also is our own responsibility to engage with them. But the women themselves, they are together. When we talk to many countries that the leadership have reservation, because it's also maybe the next election coming, I don't want to be shown that I am going to blame the men and so on. So yeah, we need to engage in the right time, at the right moment, and make sure that our strategy will work. And I need to give tribute to the main drafter, Eva Jali. She is great. She was drafting the part of the constitution of her country as well. When I name somebody like Maza, good also to see the main drafter as well. She has skills, like you were saying, of drafting and engaging as well. She doesn't advocate like me talking, but she will, make sure that she writes the right language and so on. And they are around us. Everybody have the skills, making sure that we get where we wanted to go. The last question, the data. The data to be used by AI, that's also a very big question because we are now very engaged in AI without understanding it. In fact, our last retreat with Ellen Johnson and leaders was about AI. Because the way that it is portrayed African women, or even women in general, is very negative. They don't understand. But I think also in the meantime, it's our own faults because we don't document enough and we don't penetrate enough to put our own data ourselves. What we wanted to be a good experience, like you said from the beginning. We're not documenting it. We don't questioning the language. We are just like consuming and without really reacting, not reacting, but being part and parcel of the system of the AI. But for me, I am saying this generation should engage because it's there, we like it or not. It is there. But the way that it is really affecting the life actually, especially on in politics. We are right now working on women in politics with UNDP, setting up an academy for women. Young people are scared to enter into politics because of this. The way that they portray them, the way it's, and violence that they're showing on them and the young people. And it's more on women than on men. Men can do 10 times something, it become normal. And, and the women will do a small, and even not do it, they will look at how the women have done it. And it's normally the women who will be used to criticize. So I think with our mind change also at grassroots level, that women have to support women, we are doing it, but it needs to change the mindset of this generation, but also the elders that are down there to say that, don't do female genital cutting anymore, because they are the guardian of the knives. So sensitize them. And this our work as advocates.
Wow, we could continue this conversation for a whole day. Thank you so much, Madame Diop. This has been such an honor to have you here. Can we just say thank you so much?
It's an honor to be with you. It's an honor to be with Ruth. The famous. I'm so happy. The intellect, yeah, that's great. Yes.
Thank you all for coming. There's lots of food back there. Don't forget that we have such an honor to have her around Harvard for a while, and I think the Human Rights Program will do probably a couple other things, and I'm definitely going to be taking a lot of her time. So I really don't want you to take any of her time because I want it all, but it's just such an honor to have her here, and thank you all for coming out, and have a great rest of the afternoon. Thank you.